Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to discuss something that I thought would be pretty interesting to look into, and that's the 10 most cursed decisions I believe you can make throughout the entirety of your journey in Baldur's Gate 3. I got this idea from an awesome content creator who made several videos on this topic, Big Dan Gaming, who compiled decisions from all 3 acts but in separate videos. Today I wanted to compile what I personally thought were the worst decisions across the entirety of the game's 3 acts and why they're so harrowing in particular. Also, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider subbing to the channel and dropping a like, and without further ado, let's get right into it. You can first encounter Karlach during an early Act 1 quest for Wyll, known as Hunt for the Devil. Firstly, you'll stumble upon the Paladins of Tyr, who ask for your help to kill the devil, of which is affirmed by Wyll, who has been tasked by his patron Mizora to also do the same. If you do decide to side with the Paladins and assist Wyll in his misinformed task, you'll find the location of Karlach, who's hiding out somewhere near the Paladins' hideout. When you actually find Karlach, you find that she's not actually a devil like described, but an innocent tiefling who was forcibly conscripted into Zerial's army within Avernus. As we find her, she's currently on the run as she has just fled the Hells, and she doesn't actually want for any bloodshed, but rather the chance for earned freedom and peace. Choosing not to listen to what she has to say and following through with the task given by Mizora to Wyll is easily one of the most cursed decisions you can make in all of Baldur's Gate 3. You're not actively silencing a devil, but you're killing someone who's never had the opportunity to make a choice for themselves. Killing Karlach outwardly means you're siding with the manipulative devil Mizora, who's simply using Wyll as a pawn, and in doing so you're robbing yourself of one of the best companions in the entire game. Karlach's quest is one of many lessons and feelings, from heartbreak to absolute resilience, and in killing her you unnecessarily end the arc of one of the most beloved characters of the game in your first few hours within Faerun. You'll also be losing a party member who's a strong barbarian, which is definitely going to hurt your playthrough for a while, especially at the start of the game, and killing her marks a choice for your character that signifies the type of world your character is trying to create. The Emerald Grove feels like a mostly peaceful refuge other than the infighting within, as it's a barricade against the goblins who want to destroy it and kill everyone inside. But one of the game's most dark choices will allow you to hand the Grove's keys to the killers who desire its destruction. Not too far into Act 1, you'll be able to meet the goblin leader Minthara at the goblin camp, and you can choose to help her lead a goblin army into the Sacred Grove, taking over it and killing everyone in your path. To the Grove, in doing so you turn from a simple helpful outsider to a traitor who opens the gate and blows the horn that unleashes the massacre of all the tieflings and druids inside, all under the banner of the Absolute. It's a brutal choice to make, and one I personally could not make until I did a few playthroughs of the game. It's a choice you really feel the consequences of, as the massacre is one orchestrated by the voice and actions of your character. Going through with the raid will allow you to recruit Minthara into your party, but by all intents and purposes, this is quite a hollow win. You'll pay a high price in this raid, as Karlach and Wyll will leave your party disgusted at your actions, while Halsin will simply never join your party throughout the entire playthrough. There's no treasure, armor, or reward you'll gather in making this choice, but rather the only thing you'll get from this is the feeling of brutality and betrayal wrapped in pure obedience to the Absolute. It's an early game decision that will stain your character's reputation for the rest of the game, as you lose out on allies, quests, and engage in a massacre of the innocent, all with no real purpose. Somewhere deep in the putrid, sunlit wetlands, what seems like a simple rescue mission can turn into a quest where you can make one of the game's most disturbing choices. Within this area, you'll find Auntie Ethel, a seemingly harmless old woman being nagged by 2 brothers who are desperate to find their lost sister. But we of course find out that Ethel is a hag, and she's got the brother's sister, Mayrina, held hostage. Of course, the most moral choice you think is to help Mayrina escape her kidnapping and gain her unsolicited freedom. But after supposedly killing Ethel, Mayrina is only full of anger, as we find that the hag had promised to bring her husband back to life. In the aftermath of this fight, in searching Auntie Ethel's lair, we find a wand with necromantic capabilities, one that can supposedly bring Mayrina's husband back to life. There's really not any good outcomes for either side in going with any of the choices surrounding the wand. After finding the wand, you can simply break the wand right in front of Mayrina, just snapping it and acting like it's nothing, while Mayrina falls to her knees in absolute despair, screaming for the hope that's just shattered. But arguably, using the wand can lead to an even worse choice. You can go outside Auntie Ethel's lair and use the wand, but it doesn't bring her husband back to his former self, but rather a thrall who's simply obedient and has no personality and is just a corpse on a leash. Here, you can choose to give the wand to Mayrina and for her to have control, but then again, he's just a zombie. She still didn't get what she wanted. The other more sinister choice is to keep him for yourself, making him your personal servant, while Mayrina yells out horrified at the creature that once was her husband. This quest doesn't really have any good endings, especially if you do decide to use the wand, and it's one of the most disturbing dilemmas in the entire game. Moving on to some of the harrowing choices presented to us in Act 2 of the game, one such will be presented to you when you reach Moonrise Towers, in which you'll find that the infernal patron of Wyll, Mizora, is trapped within a mind flayer pod underneath the tower's infrastructure. At first, your instinct may be to flip the switch to kill her, but then you realize too late that one of your companions, Wyll, is inherently bound to her. He'll burst out into flames and is dragged into the hells of Avernus. In going through with this decision, you've not just killed a devil, but as a result doomed your friend and loyal companion. Wyll, from this point onwards, will not just disappear for Act 2, but for the entire story of the rest of the game, and it's a choice of no return, and doing so means Wyll won't be along for the ride anymore. Wyll's entire arc disappears just as fast as he's dragged back to the Hells, and his emotional journey, his quest for redemption after forming the devilish pact, it's all just taken away from him. Killing Mizora may feel like the most righteous or satisfying choice in the moment, but the price of doing so is just as staggering as any other decision in this list. The party's reaction to your choice, in particular with Karlach, who wields of course some sort of bond with Wyll due to him sparing her in Act 1, is agonizing and makes you truly comprehend the cruelty of your actions as you betray one of your most loyal companions, all with the knowledge of its consequences. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game filled with such hard choices, as is discussed within this video, but this is one I just can't bring myself to do, and I think that's what makes it one of the more harrowing decisions in the entire game. At the moral crux of Act 2 of Baldur's Gate 3, it's the Gauntlet of Shar. You follow Shadowheart into the Shadowfell and come upon an immortal prisoner, the Nightsong, the daughter of Selune. The game gives you a choice. Either you convince Shadowheart to stray from Shar's path or fully embrace it. And if you do embrace it, the spear plunges into the Nightsong and causes cataclysm for everyone we encountered in Act 2 so far. Killing the Nightsong collapses the shield around the Last Light Inn, dooming every Harper and Tiefling inside, with the decision cementing an apocalyptic like event for the Shadow-Cursed lands. Even more significantly, this decision marks a change in Shadowheart, who doesn't come out of the Shadowfell the same, as she fully commits herself to Shar as a Dark Justiciar, donning the iconic armor and gaining Shar's legendary spear in the process. Shadowheart becomes even sharper, colder, and any romantic or light thread that you built with her over the journey shatters under her uncontested loyalty to Shar. What makes this decision so dark is the fact that the spear is really in your hands, as Shadowheart's resolve at the point of this decision begins to waver. But when you reaffirm her original desire to kill the Nightsong for Shar, you've clearly chosen darkness over the light. As a result of killing the Nightsong, you make the entirety of the Shadow-Cursed lands pay, with many allies dying, including the great war hero companion Jaheira. Sparing the Nightsong puts you on a path much lighter, as you keep crucial allies and fight the path of light for the rest of your journey. But not doing so causes a shattering in the redemption of Shadowheart and comes at the disapproval of many companions. Your decision here will echo through the rest of the game, through the lives of those affected, as you intentionally destroy the last beacon of hope left for those fighting against evil in the Shadow-Cursed lands. This one is very much linked to the previous cursed decision, but it's just too much of an impactful decision in the game that I had to discuss it in depth separately. Killing the Nightsong is a direct prerequisite for Shadowheart's complete downfall into becoming a slave of Shar, and there's no turning back for her after this point. As soon as Shadowheart dons the infamous Dark Justiciar armor, she's crossed the line that cannot be erased. If you let Shadowheart commit to this path, she commits herself completely to darkness and oblivion, as she becomes the true leader of Shar's church just as she wanted to be. Much of Shadowheart's best moments come in the form of her redemption quest and plot within the ending parts of Act 2 and through the entirety of Act 3, but allowing her to become a Dark Justiciar at this pivotal moment makes all of that come crashing down. Like stated in the earlier section in this video, Shadowheart's turn affects the entire Last Light Inn, with even Jaheira being killed or lost off screen, marking this not as a betrayal of Shadowheart's chance for redemption, but a betrayal of all those that put their hope in you. Shadowheart's personality shift is significant once she submits herself to Shar, as no longer is she conflicted with her belief, but now is fully devoted with a sharper voice, colder heart, and a darker alignment to support her change. Any connection that you may have built with her along the journey to this point evaporates, with the companions you have gotten to know just as well disapproving as you allow Shadowheart to become controlled completely, never with the chance to become her own person again. It's a decision that I also haven't been able to make in my own playthroughs, as it's a decision that completely rips Shadowheart's growing autonomy away and makes her the slave that Shar always wanted her to be. Orin is one of the most despicable villains in the entirety of Baldur's Gate 3, and in Act 3 she sets you up for one of the most twisted tests of loyalty as she kidnaps someone from your camp, either that be Lae'zel or Halsin or even someone else, or even the orphan girl you meet in Act 3, Yenna. Orin, being her sick self, will emotionally extort you as she appears disguised as your kidnapped companion in your camp and tells you that the only way you can get them back is by killing Enver Gortash. But killing Gortash isn't exactly straightforward when he has the steel watch looking over him at all times, and so you can decide to head into the Temple of Baal to find the hostage being chained to an altar. At this moment, when Orin notices you, you're put under complete pressure, as failing any check, either that be in persuasion, intimidation, or intelligence, Orin will kill your companion, and if you don't agree to her demands, she will also attempt to kill them. The visuals within this outcome are quite disturbing, as a failed check will see the camera cut to Orin's blade, and with a drop of blood will come a corpse, and then simply silence. Orin's pressure on you tries to exert some form of loyalty, as she wants you to kill someone for her and submit to her just to retrieve back the life of your fellow companion. This outcome is one of the most heartbreaking in the entire game, as especially by Act 3 of the game, the journey with your companions is one of the most significant parts of your playthrough, and seeing them die in a flash without any proper send-off is a horrifying sight for sure. Again, another extremely impactful moral dilemma surrounding Wyll right in the chokehold of Act 3. Mizora will return to your camp after Gortash's coronation, and she's just as devilish as before, offering you a bargain that's just as sick and twisted as she is. Duke Ravengard is actually alive, but she's the only one who knows his location. But the only way she'll tell you is if Wyll signs another pact, again reselling his soul forever to the Hells. However, there's a way you can make this decision even worse than it already is. Accept the bargain from Mizora, but then do absolutely nothing to save Duke Ravengard. This means not even stepping foot onto the Iron Throne, and although you know exactly where Wyll's father is, you simply sit back and let the Duke die in his cell, while Wyll's soul pays the consequences for your evil. I think that's what makes this decision so cruel. You make Wyll's sacrifice entirely meaningless in not saving his father. His renewed servitude to those he wants to protect has no point here, and you make him trade his soul further for absolutely no reason at all. It's a decision that isn't a chaotic evil move, but it's one filled with disdain for Wyll, as you let the consequences of it just fester in your camp with no reward for his sacrifice. Wyll doesn't actually fully realize that you didn't save his father until it's way too late, and the silence that ensues is one of the most gripping in the entire game. Narratively, this choice is absolutely genius because it isn't explosive, but it's decaying quietly as you let one of your most noble and selfless companions sacrifice everything just for them to be left to rot without any salvation in sight. Khazador's palace is creepy as anything, and when Astarion finally gets to the point to stand before his tyrannical master's altar, it's the moment he's able to become a vampire ascendant in place of his former master. But the price of such a decision is horrifying, as you will have to sacrifice 7,000 vampire spawn, including Astarion's own siblings and Khazador himself, to achieve such a power. It can feel a little tempting, I'll admit, as Astarion will gain access to brutal new abilities and freedom from the curse of sunlight that he's had to contend with for so long. The power does feel alluring, but the ritual's toll isn't simply one that will give Astarion more power, but his similarity to Shadowheart's turn to a dark Justiciar becomes colder, more possessive, and begins to eerily echo the cruelty of Khazador in an ironic twist of fate. He may even offer to turn you into just another one of his spawn as well. The power given by this ascension is real, but it's also hollow in what it turns Astarion into. Astarion is not exactly a morally noble character like Wyll, but his character arc allows him to shift into someone that becomes better over time, making him into a sort of tragic character shaped by his upbringing and the cruelty inflicted upon him. But by making him ascend, you get a predator just like Khazador, and he inhibits the nature of Khazador much more than he does himself when we first meet him in Act 1 of the game. In a way, going through with this decision makes you lose out on all the moral complexity and emotional payoff associated with Astarion's arc, and it's very depressing. His entire character arc comes full circle, and it all comes at the cost of his very soul, making this ascension more of a downfall in the grander scheme of things. There's many horrible decisions throughout this list, but this one might be the worst of them all. In Act 3, we see one of the most pivotal moments of Shadowheart's entire character arc, as you guide her to the House of Grief, where she's supposed to confront her past and finally leave it all behind. But instead of slaying the cultists as you would do to complete her redemption arc once and for all, you have the choice to hand her over. And after everything you've been through with her, this is a crushing decision if you do make it. You can betray the most emotionally charged companion at one of her most vulnerable moments in the game, as she's taken away by Viconia's acrimonious cultist, and she leaves your party permanently from that moment on. There's no grand fight, no more chances of redemption, but just a cold exit for a character who fought everything for a chance at autonomy and to break from the chains of Shark. The choice feels more tactical in nature than anything, as you give up one of your most closest friends in order to avoid a large fight against the Sharans and to recruit their help in your final fight against the Absolute. But after everything you've seen in regard to Shadowheart from Act 1 to Act 2, at her most human moment you intentionally turn on her and disrupt her story arc forever. She'll lose her memories and no longer be the person that you came to know in your journey in Faerun, and instead she's back to the soul trapped by Shar's power without any more chances to break free ever again. So that's 10 of the most cursed decisions that I believe you can make through all 3 acts within Baldur's Gate 3. There's of course many more horrible decisions that you can make throughout the game, but these 10 are personally ones that I found to be some of the most gripping and horrifying in the entire game. Anyway, that's all from me for today's video. If you enjoyed, please consider subbing to the channel for more Baldur's Gate 3 and RPG content, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.